from Silicone Expo, here with the Silicone sessions, and today I'm delighted to be joined by Steve Brooks, anaplastologist who uses silicone. I'm glad I got that right, Steve.
Oh yeah, nailed it.
Brilliant. Steve's going to show us around your working area and how it works. Brilliant. Steve, over to you.
Right, well, what we've got is a nice big set of rollers which we will process and mill the silicone through. So when we take out part A and part B and mix them together, we need to then add pigments to it and flockings. Flockings are very tiny fibres which you'll add into the silicone to give it something that looks a little bit more like skin rather than something that would look more like bubble gum. So it's important to introduce enough of those materials in there to give your silicone a skin-like quality. So you can set the rollers to different thicknesses depending on what's necessary for the manufacture of the prosthesis. Oven over here and a range of different foams. So if I need to foam and shape the foot area or maybe a part of the leg, we put the foam into the oven, heat it up, and then when it comes out it's extremely malleable, so you can form it to the shape of what you need to, and then you can go onto the socket router and shape it down just to give it its final flash over and get the final shape. So what would happen is a cast would be sent to me, and then what I would do is then seal the back up and then pour Comosil in here and wait for that to form a film over the entire area of the inside of the cast. Because if we were to just pour plaster straight into that, it would bond to this and you'd never get it out. So you need a parting agent. So once the plaster is set, we then take the shell off and then pull the leg out, and that is ready at that stage to be cooked in the oven so that we can lay the silicone onto it. You cannot lay silicone onto a wet cast or a damp cast. It just lifts straight off. So that will then spend a couple of days in the oven at about 50-55 degrees until the cast is properly cooked. And that will be the oven there that I actually do my casting in. It has to be quite a tall oven, because if you're doing quite a leg, a full thigh down to the floor leg, they are really quite tall, and you really do need the full height of the oven just in case you have a particularly tall individual's leg to make. Okay, so onto my actual workbench itself. This always wants to be reasonably tidy and clear, because I need my head to be tidy and clear when I'm working on something like this. So what I would have is I'd have the plaster cast on a boom hanging out of the vise, and then I'd start laying the silicone on. I'd structure up the shape of the toes in a slightly harder silicone, and then the finer silicone that we use for the general body would be laid on, and then patching done, and then we'd get in with the sculpting. To achieve the best possible results, you always need a good selection of photos and a good alginate of the person's foot, so that you've got something in front of you that you can copy and make as realistic looking as you possibly can. And once that's done, we get some photos done, or we have a video conference where the patient can have a look at their limb and make sure that they're happy with it. And if there are any aspects of the sculpt that they're not entirely comfortable with, at that stage it's still malleable enough to ensure that we can do something about it and shape it necessarily to the shape that best suits them. So here we have a full leg prosthesis, and on this side we have a partial foot. So in this case, obviously the patient has lost their entire leg, and in this one they have lost a part of their foot. So in there would be like softer gels to act as a cushion for the end of the distal end of the area that they've lost their foot, and the rest of it is made up out of the silicones that are used in both cases. Actually do this if you don't have an artistic value, appreciation and background. I think that if you don't, then you're always going to be producing something which looks kind of good, but you don't critique your work in the same way that you would have done had you been studying, and when you're doing still life, you're evaluating what you've got in front of you. You're constantly looking at the relationships that exist between one part of a form in one area and another in another. And if you don't have that, then you'll just end up making something that it's a foot, it's a leg.
Yeah, there's certainly not a job that you could not give 100%. I mean, 99% of your time. and you end up with a very different product at the end.
It really does require that you have that. And I think that there are a variety of individuals who think that this is just something that can be taught quite quickly and quite easily. They're mistaken. You really do have to, at your core, be good at what you do and have to be artistic in the way that you view what's happening here, and never be entirely happy. You're just really, really fussy about what you do. So you can't teach someone to give a damn.
So you started this in the 90s and became an anapastologist. How did you become? I'm assuming that the technology and the manufacturing process was quite early in those days. How did you become?
Done my degree in art. I got a first, and I was applying to a variety of different places. Applied to the Royal College, and then I noticed an advert in the back of the local paper that said artists wanted. So I applied for the job and got it, and been doing it at that place for just over 20 years. But the principles fairly much remain the same in terms of the materials that are used and the way that you structure the manufacture of a prosthesis, but the thing that constantly shifts is your level of, I could do better, I could do better, I really could do better. So every time you finish your job and you take it off the cast, you think, oh, I could have done that, but a little bit better. And you bear that in mind for the next time that you do another job, to look at that and be aware of that. So.